Welcome to the Impactful Engineer Project. I'm Steve Maxey, and with my co-host and brother Jake, we are here to bring you guidance, fresh ideas, and the tools to help you become an impactful engineer. Hey guys, this is Steve here. Jake is not on this episode, but I wanted to do a quick hot take episode for you guys because I've been reviewing some resumes and interviewing for an open position lately. So I wanted to touch on how anyone can ace interviews. First thing to bring up is something we've actually touched on before, and that's to be as genuine as you possibly can be. I personally do very little prep to do interviews because it forces me to be absolutely genuine. When I originally started interviewing, like right out of school, I would do a ton of prep. I would go through a ton of notes and try to, estimate every possible question and come up with a great answer for each one of those. And the anxiety would just build up a ton. And I would fail miserably at every interview. And so when I started to not even worry about that and just show up and be myself and be honest and just be direct, that's when offers started coming right after the interviews. And so the main thing is just to be as genuine as you possibly can. But it doesn't mean I do absolutely no prep. The prep that I do is I write down what stories to refresh my memories on the things that I've done and how they can be used to show my growth up until that point. Telling stories, not hypotheticals, is how you connect with the person you are talking to. It makes your conversation more real, more genuine, and it builds up the trust that you are sincere in what you are saying and that you have the skills that you say you have. Best stories explain how you learned a lesson. Ideally, you use them to showcase how you manage relationships or workload and prioritization, because the fact that you went to school sets the baseline that you have the basic technical understanding of the job, and of course any previous related work experiences boost that level of perception. So what they're really looking for is beyond that technical aspect of the job listing is how are you going to operate as a team member when you are in high stress, high pressure environments, shifting priorities, all that kind of stuff. So those are the kind of things that they're really looking for. So everyone has negative and positive experiences, and most people want to just jump to all the positive ones, but what really shows growth is the negative experiences. But every negative experience needs to have a positive outcome for it to be effective. So because the lessons learned are incredibly valuable, as now they know you won't make those same mistakes in their business on their time and costing them money. With that said, to tell a good story, you need to keep it to three basic elements. The first one is to establish a baseline of where you were before the lesson, right? So you kind of have to paint the picture of your story. And the next one is explain how you screwed up, right? This is the catalyst event of the lesson. It's the shock to your normality that you grew from. After that, the final step is to establish the new baseline, where you are now that you've learned that lesson, and what is your new learned skill. And you typically want to finish with a quick example of where you executed from your new skill, or just stating, how you've been moving forward ever since. So a good example, I think, during my senior design project, I was designing a machine case for a 3-stage reduction gearbox. It was for like a velomobile project. I spent probably, 40 hours doing the CAD work, running analysis, selecting off the shelf parts for this thing just to work awesome. I showed it to the rest of the team, and everyone loved it, right? This was the portion of the project that I was working on. And so I took it to the instructor for the CNC class to show off the parts that now I needed to make. And, checked it out, looked it over, and he kind of laughed. He's like, how do you intend to install the shaft right here? And I replied, well, putting a snap ring around it. You see the groove right here? And he's like, well, how are you going to get the snap ring pliers to expand in such a tight hole? And, that was a really big palm and face moment, especially, I consider myself an experienced shade tree mechanic and car enthusiast. So I know how to use hand tools, but at that instance, I got into the typical, engineering mindset of, as a student where everything's ideal and, it's all in CAD space, everything looks great. So I felt like such a noob. From that point on, taking the tools used to assemble a product has always been at the forefront of my mind. I always consider that, is this wrench going to fit there? Is this socket going to fit there? How's the person going to, open this back up for maintenance, that kind of thing. So that is a quick example of one way that you learned a valuable lesson that now you won't make that same mistake in a new organization or a new role. So that's just one, but you can come up with a dozen of these things in various types of scenarios and just kind of have them in your back of your brain. And when they ask a question that relates to one of those stories, you can just pick it up instantly. And they regurgitate it because you've refreshed those stories in once a week or however often you need to. And the other quick thing I wanted to touch on, I kind of came up with a little analogy that is viewing each lesson as a step in the stairway of your career. So every flight is the next level or role you want to get to, and how many stories in the building of your career is up to you. But to get to that next level, you need to take each step or skill set learned to get there. And so whatever job you're interviewing for has a minimum story for the entrance point, right? To get to that role. And your stories are how you communicate where you stand. Now, when you're applying for jobs, I want to make sure that you don't think that you have to meet every single bullet point that is in the job description, from the role that's posted. But you can figure out which bullet points are must-haves and which are nice-to-haves, but never be afraid to apply for a job that has bullets you don't meet. The important thing to show when that misalignment comes up is that you have the ability and the drive to learn to overcome those discrepancies. So, quick episode. I just wanted to get that out there. I think it'll be very helpful. If you have additional things that you'd like to add to this, and we can do a follow-up hot take episode, or maybe Jake can do a hot take and follow up and add his viewpoint. Send some questions or comments to questions@impactfulengineer.com, and we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening.
Hey guys, I hope you had a great time listening. Maybe you learned something new, maybe you got inspired, or at least took one thing away that you'd be able to use. Maybe you just had a good laugh. Impactful Engineering's hope and mission is that through this podcast, we can play a small part in expanding the reach and awareness of engineering and all of its many areas of application. The multiple engineering career paths available can be hugely rewarding as part of a fulfilled life, creating opportunity to impact nearly everyone in the modern world. An engineer's work helps to foster creation of new technologies, create safe and comfortable environments in which people can work, and lends to the sustainable future of everyone on the planet. The world needs more impactful engineers. Our vision is to provide engineers with the perspective and the tools to allow themselves the opportunity to become the most impactful engineers they can be. Included in our vision is to grow the impactful engineering community to a point where we can provide full ride scholarships to students in every single U.S. state every single year. This is an enormous goal, and with your help, we can get there. To start, we will continue to execute this mission in the way that we know how, having conversations, telling stories, and talking about what we find interesting and are passionate about. If the episode made you think, made you object, made you think you could possibly be doing something more with your day, or brought about an idea that you could spend more time on developing further, please share the show or recommend it to your friends. Even if you didn't personally think it was a huge help, there may be someone that you know that could benefit from it, and that's all we can ask for. Until next time on the Impactful Engineer Podcast.